I've always loved checking out new versions of classic arcade games being adapted to our favourite vintage micros and consoles. Sure, a conversion might be less exciting than an original game, but they're a great way for a budding coder to learn what it takes to create a game. Now, what excites me even more is seeing them transcend their fan-developed origins and become legitimate releases, which is especially important with console games due to all that licensing nonsense. And that's why the arrival of Darius Extra in 2020 was so darn exciting. Darius Extra is two things. Obviously, it's a conversion of Taito's 1986 arcade smash. Secondly though, it serves as an upgrade to the 2019 conversion, which shipped with Sega's Mega Drive Genesis Mini, making it available to those who own original consoles or compatible clones. As you'd expect with a shmup, the story is pretty threadbare. You take charge of pilots Proco or Tiat, taking to the skies in their Silverhawk fighters, acting as the last line of defense for the Darius system, which has been invaded by the Balsar forces who have laid waste to the planetary defenses within. All of which is pretty much what you'd expect for an 80s shmup, right? Yeah. What Darius brings to the table is two particular tricks. The first is its level structure, where instead of a fixed set of levels you have to fight through, you'll be offered up a branching path, outrun style, after completing each stage. The path through to the end will have you battling through 7 levels out of a set of 28. Yeah, 2 of them are repeated amongst the final set. There's actually 26 unique levels in there. It's great for variety, as even though you might find your particular favourites over repeated runs, there's plenty of room for you to pick your own path and experience something different every time you play. Thankfully, each level does carry its own unique visual style, and that helped keep me interested in seeing what is out there during the chaos of all the blasting. What I feel also helps is that the stages are relatively breezy to fight through. Had they been as lengthy as those seen in other games, I feel you'd probably be a little fatigued by the end of your run. Plus, the challenge of learning all of them I think would probably be a bit too much for the average player, and that would kind of remove the desire to want to try out those other stages. There's just too much to learn and process, so you stick to what you know. Which makes it a relief there's plenty of enemy wave patterns that are shared across the stages, so you can pick up on them given enough playtime. It's a fair enough convenience, considering what I imagine was limited ROM space available on hand for the original arcade version of the game. Of course, its second feature is the boss battles. Every stage climaxes with that famous "a huge battleship is approaching fast" prompt, and the mechanised aquatic craft you'll battle are every bit as iconic as you'd expect. Though the fights, they don't really have the complexity that you're going to find in later shooters, I'm more than fine with that. There is enough here in learning where each boss's weak spots are, as taking advantage of those will help you clear up that bit quicker. It's not just about the primary target. And of course, surviving with any good shmup really is about learning how to clear boss encounters quickly. Something that was added to that Mega Drive Mini release of Darius, which carries over here, is the option to set which group of bosses you want to tackle. In the original arcade game, there were 11 bosses. Regardless of which path you chose, one was common to each of the first 6 stages. The rest of them were allocated to those levels in the Stage 7 candidates. This new option gives you a unique boss for every stage. This was bringing in the bosses that were originally added to the PC Engine CD game Super Darius, which of course took advantage of the CD-ROM's format and the extra space to include them in the game. That of course means that, you betcha, there is another reason to keep trying alternate paths as you play, to see what bosses are out there waiting for you, what horrible machinations the Balsars have unleashed upon you. Now of course, where Darius does stand out from other shooters is in its power-up system. As formations spawn in, sometimes you'll see the final enemy usually a different colour, accented red, blue or green. Taking that one out will release a power-up capsule of the given colour, which upgrades that thing when collected. Red pickups upgrade your primary shot, green the bombs that you drop, and blue will give you protective shielding. If you collect 8 capsules of a given colour, you'll upgrade it to the next level out of 3. And that makes your main shot more powerful by travelling through enemies and then the landscape, to increasing the number of bombs that you launch at a burst, or allowing your shield to survive more hits before it fails. Again, as with any shmup, the challenge is survival. If you get taken out, your power-up stats will reset to the base of its current level. And yes, that is genuinely really heartbreaking if you're one pickup off leveling up your power-up. So if you have collected, if you've leveled up your main shot to level 2, and you've collected 6 power-ups, you die, you lose those 6. You'll still have the level 2 shot, but it'll be at the base level 2 shot. Now, joining those 3 system upgrades are 2 special pickups, which you can find by blasting the scenery. These points are static between levels, so knowing where they are is great, and you get 2. The silver orbs give you a random score bonus. The gold ones, very handy because they will clear the screen of every enemy present. So bringing those up and waiting for the right time to grab it, never so important. Despite having to squish the widescreen triple monitor view of the arcade game down to a single screen, I feel Darius Extra does an incredible job of bringing that feel over to the Mega Drive. There is some tight programming on board, resulting in little to no flicker or slowdown, even when the screen fills up with stupendous numbers of enemies and bullets that you've got to work your way around. To go with that is an excellent, well, what I feel is an excellent translation of the arcade machine soundtrack. It shouldn't be a surprise to say it, considering both the Mega Drive and the arcade game do use FM synthesis hardware for the music. Now, I've not studied how the music sounds to the minute degree, but from my casual listening during my time playing, the conversions for the Mega Drive are close enough to give you the vibes from the original game. Now, I'm sure that someone who is a lot more familiar will probably point out where the differences are, but I think, as a casual translation, I think it's pretty spot on. It really makes a conversion that feels tight, looks the part, and plays very well, considering what had to be done to, make it fit on a single screen. The Mega Drive version, of course, is not the first version that had to do that. Those PC Engine versions did it first, but still, it works really damn well here. And I guess that it shows what can be done when you have the talent behind it and a love for the source material. And that's really where this version actually grew out of. It started as a labour of love by one Hideki Konishi, a doctor by day, who decided to teach himself how to program the Mega Drive in order to replicate a version of this game out of his love for it. Where things moved forward, of course, was with that Mega Drive Mini from 2019, which had M2 on board, and they were aware of this version of the game, and they kind of pitched it as a nice bonus inclusion, being inspired by the Super NES Classic from 2017, having the full version of Star Fox 2. And I'm reading the story of its development. I will have a link in the description for a cool article that I had to run through a translator, so I don't rely on what it actually says. But the gist of it is, it really does feel like a match made in heaven. This group of people coming together and making something really cool and getting it out there and having it spread wider, I think that's really, really darn special. And so, where does Darius Extra sit upon that original 2019 version in the Mega Drive Mini? Well, there are some minor improvements, like taking advantage of 6-button controllers, which gives you 2 different rates of auto-fire. Not only that, but I love that now you can have both your main weapons and your bombs launched from a single button. And this sounds relatively minor, but if you're playing on a gamepad rather than an arcade stick, it's real convenient being able to do that, Most of us cannot hit a fire button on a gamepad anywhere near as fast or as conveniently as you can on an arcade stick. So being able to hold the C button down, or the Z button for a faster rate as default, just makes it a nice little feature that really, really benefits. What's also cool is that Darius Extra integrates all 3 revisions of the arcade game, old, new, and extra. Now, I'm nowhere near enough a master of the game to know the nuances between both, but I can certainly feel that in different versions of the game, the balance was better. I know I did a lot better playing new than I did old, but Extra was quite a bit more interestingly challenged, but balanced better. This revision choice also applies to the boss rush mode. That was also present in the 2019 version, which of course channels Darius Alpha, the special PC Engine edition that was like part of a compo. There's like 800 copies in the world, so one of the rarest PC Engine games. And this mode, you work your way through all 26 bosses in sequence, so yes, you can't play it with the original arcade arrangement of bosses. As you defeat bosses, you'll earn power-ups, letting you slowly upgrade your fighter to tackle those later ones. And it makes it a real interesting challenge because you've really got to master these bosses and survive. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck fighting them with little to no power-ups because of how the power-up system works here. It really does test your ability to learn how to adapt and face these bosses. And I know from my own experience playing this mode while filming for the video and just playing on the side, I do see myself having gotten better in battling those bosses as a result. There is one big feature that really helps mitigate the challenges if you're learning the game, and that's easy mode, which replaces the ability to have two players simultaneously. And that's a mode, I think some people would miss it, but I'm not surprised that it's not there because really with the single screen, you just have enough on screen as it is that the second player would probably mess things up. So yeah, but easy mode switches you out to tier, and it lets you keep your power up levels when you die. So when you die, you don't get reset to the base level of what you've got, but you still keep your points. Your weapons now also do double damage, which is probably really where I think this version helps out as you learn the game. And of course, you've got continues should you run out of lives, letting you resume where you left off, which is great for being able to maybe play some of those stages that do get you stuck here and there. All of this though does come with a cost, and that is that your high scores are not recorded, which I think for learning the game is pretty much a fair price to pay. I mean, you're focusing on learning how things work rather than trying to go for that best score, and I guess that really means that's what lets you, it gives you the drive to want to go back to the regular mode and seeing if you can do it properly with a bit more experience under your belt, and I'm all for that. I think there's something really special with a release like Darius Extra. I mean, it's Space Year 2025, and it's honestly pretty easy to play the original arcade version of Darius legally. You've got arcade archives, you've got the Cosmic Collection. And if you have the kind of setup, we've got a widescreen display, the game without being squished down too much, and you have a nice speaker setup and a really good arcade stick, it's probably the way to go, let's face it. If you're not in that position though, and you just happen to have a Mega Drive or compatible clone to hand, I think you're going to get a lot out of Darius Extra, providing you're a shooter fan, of course. It's honestly the version I'd probably go for because I don't really have that arcade kind of setup, and even on a normal 16:9 monitor, I still feel the arcade version, through Cosmic Collection is still squished a little too much for my liking. If I had a bigger monitor, maybe it wouldn't be as bad, but plus, there are no arcades near me that have that original machine to play, so playing at home is pretty much my option, so yeah. I am okay with that though. Again, Darius Extra has given me a lot of enjoyment and a lot of challenge as I've been playing it to put this video together. It's got me wanting to really up my game so I can try and master it and see just how far I can get, how far I can push myself. I did clear easy mode multiple times, but that's really not enough here. I really want to be able to do it on that main mode, but it's a challenge I want to work towards. Despite being released back in 2020, the versions for Western consoles, which were published through Strictly Limited Games, they surprisingly still have copies to hand. So if you're rocking that original Mega Drive or a compatible enough clone, then it is worth considering as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a package that is well worth your time considering. Sadly, if that's not you, well, options for a digital release are sadly not available. It is a shame, I do really wish that was the case, but then again, if you're just wanting to play this on an emulator on your modern PC or whatever, well, you've got the arcade original instead, and that's far more convenient to access once again, because we've got the Cosmic Collection and other such options. And with that, that is pretty much all I really need to say here. Do check Darius Extra out if you can. Otherwise, go play the original. It's still an incredible game, and I know it's got me really wanting to play it more after playing this. But as always, it leaves me little else to just say thank you all very much for watching.